Come on, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Yeah, it's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. It's straight talk with Valerie. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on.
We have devils in the courtroom. Devils in the courtroom. We have devils in the courtroom wearing black robes. Devils with briefcases lined through their nose. Some devils have a gavel, they hit real hard. Some devils just there punching 8-time card. While the probate courts are stealing your money, they're scheming and they're plotting. So much corruption going on inside. Fiduciary abuse can't hide. We have devils in the courtroom wearing black robes. Devils with briefcases lined through their nose. Some devils have a gavel, they hit real hard. Some devils just there punching 8-time card. We have devils in the courtroom. Fiduciary abuse. Devils in the courtroom. Probate courts. We have devils in the courtroom stealing your money. Devils in the courtroom and they're plotting. We have devils in the courtroom. So much corruption. Devils in the courtroom. We have devils in the courtroom.
You are listening to The Real Black Coffee, no sugar, no cream, and we are back. We took a little break. Summer vacation was good to me, and we are back. Today is another anniversary, but it's a sad one. And anniversaries usually are things that we should be celebrating and that we should be proud of, but not tonight. This is the 1-year anniversary of me covering the corruption in the probate court system. And we still do not have justice, folks. A whole year. Things were going on prior to my coverage of these horrific incidents. But to think after a whole year of people fighting for their lives, fighting for their relatives' lives, fighting for their children's livelihood, fighting to keep their assets from being pillaged, and all of that to no avail. The state of Michigan even has instituted, under the auspice of Dana Nessel, an elder abuse task force. This is my opinion, that task force just victimized the victims. Nothing has been done and justice has not been served. We have another unit under our Attorney General Nessel, the Conviction Integrity Unit. And there have been a lot of exonerees released who were wrongfully convicted. So let's keep that same energy, Dana Nessel, and let's start releasing some of these other people who have been wrongfully convicted and sentenced to nursing homes, who have been wrongfully removed from their family members, and they are not allowed to see them. And it has nothing to do with COVID. COVID just put another coal on the fire to give another reason for not allowing these things to happen. Family members who are hurting and heartbroken. You know, we covered a story with a wonderful, poised woman named Alexis Moore. That was our first time talking about this situation and her mother. Awful, awful story. Brought me to tears at the end. And we've all heard of Jody White and her fight to clear her name. You know, most of these people just want justice, but it seems when you know your rights and you speak out because you know your rights, then you become victimized. Your voice is silenced. You can be brutalized by the police. You can be jailed. That's just a snippet of Jody White's story, all because you're speaking out. Well, tonight, on the anniversary of these horrific events, we're going to talk to several individuals who have had to deal with this system of injustice. And we're going to also talk about what does justice look like to them. So first up, I'm going to have Holly Deph. Holly has been fighting and fighting and fighting for her daughter who has a disability. I can only imagine being separated from your child under any pretense, but a child who has a disability, who can't even speak or talk for themselves and do anything for themselves, and you have to rely upon this system to let you know if they're okay, if they're being treated appropriately, and anything else that goes along with that. But Holly has kept herself together as much as she possibly can throughout this ordeal. Speaking of Dana Nessel, they had these listening tours, which I'm not going to even get off task on that one. I don't know who's supposed to be doing the listening, because it doesn't seem like they're doing any listening. It's just like a whole show of, oh, we hear you and we're doing something, but then it's business as usual after the tour, because I haven't heard of any stories of anyone getting any justice under her listening tour, under her leadership, under her guidance. Now, I don't know every victim that has been victimized by this, but I'm just saying, out of the group of people that I've met from across this country, Florida, you name it, and not one of those persons has received justice, that's an issue across America. So let's listen to a snippet of Holly speaking at one of these listening tours on behalf of her daughter. And when we finish that clip, the next voice you will hear will be from Holly.
So anyway, it's really my privilege to be here in Grand Rapids for our first stop on the Elder Abuse Task Force listening tour. Just to give a brief overview of the task force and today's agenda. You know, we established the Elder Abuse Task Force just a little while ago, I'd say in March, and we wanted to have some real solutions in place for challenges that I know our aging population experiences. And I was really thrilled because when I came into office, I actually got a call from Chief Justice Bridget McCormick, and she said, I'd really like to do something in concert with your office to try to tackle the issue of elder abuse. And I said, well, what a coincidence, I ran on that. So I would also like to do something in that involving that area. And shortly thereafter we had a meeting, and obviously Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Bernstein wanted to be very involved in this process, and I'm just so thrilled to have them as partners as we engage and go forward in this endeavor. So we wanted to find out really what would be the very best ways to tackle these concerns and bring about resources together so that we could not just develop but actually deliver real solutions to the biggest problems facing our senior population. So we put together this great task force, not just myself and Justices Kavanaugh and Bernstein, but we put my incredible head of our Financial Crimes Division, Scott Keeter, on this, who, as it turned out, was raring to go and already had a whole bunch of recommendations put together on this. And he's a little bit of a drill sergeant, but I mean that in the nicest way possible, Scott. And then we got involved, 80 different members on the task force that represent 50 different organizations in both the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, all working together to reduce barriers facing our aging population. Next, we developed 9 initiatives that we wanted to address right out of the gate. Now, these 9 initiatives are designed to address issues that have been researched and have been discussed ad nauseum. It's not really rocket science. We know what the problems are. And in fact, there were a couple earlier task forces in the 1990s and the 2000s that set about the job of identifying what those problems were. The problem is they didn't really follow through on developing solutions and putting them into place. So that's the difference in what we're doing. These initiatives are action-oriented, and we are counting on your insights and experience and suggestions to help ensure that we are all well-equipped to address the challenges that are facing seniors and other vulnerable adults in our state. Let me take a moment just to mention some of them. Things like requiring professional guardians to be bonded and certified, including minimum training and establishing professional standards. Reviewing the process for emergency petitions for guardianship and conservatorship, so that they're required to have a full hearing with the ward present and requiring medical testimony. It doesn't seem like rocket science, does it? But these are things that are not required at this juncture. How about limiting the number of wards per guardian so that you don't see guardians with 500 wards? Developing statutory basic rights for the family members of the ward, including notice and opportunity to file motions and documents. What about visitation? Visitation for family members so that even if you aren't appointed guardian, you can still see your mother or father or your loved one. And reviewing the process of guardian removal of the ward from the home so that we can make certain.
So I just wanted you to hear a little snippet of that BS because none of it happened. But I don't want you to take it from me. I said the next voice that you were going to hear would be from Holly. Welcome to the Real Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream. Holly, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you.
You know, I'm so happy to hear that because I know you're doing the best that you can. And just like I want Attorney Nessel to cut to the chase, we're going to get right into the thick of it. I know that you have not seen your daughter, and I know it is a horrific experience for you. What does justice look like for you and your daughter? Give us a little snippet of how your daughter was just ripped away. Tell us how you're feeling. Tell us how much of what we just heard in that snippet was a whole pack of lies.
It's a whole pack of lies. These people are just very cold. They're thinking about money. They don't think about our loved ones as human beings. They think about them as dogs and cats in a dog pound. That's why so many kids and elderly and disabled are being taken. They just don't think of them as being humans. It's cash, it's power, and they don't think of them as human with human needs to be happy, to smile, to go to concerts, which Emily was doing, to go swimming, which was Emily was doing, to go see silly movies, which what Emily was doing, to go to therapy, which is what Emily was doing. They don't like that. They don't like people raising their voices to them. They just don't want that kind of thing. And it is money. They're making a lot of money off of Emily, as they are a lot of people. They take them They have to justify their jobs for their budget the following year. That's what this is all about. If they don't justify their budget, then these nursing homes, these group homes, they're not going to get their money from the feds. So they have to fill those nursing home beds one way or another. That APS officer has to find bad stuff, or she has to fabricate it and make it up. They have to find stuff, or they cannot justify their jobs. They got a lot of money coming in. And if they don't justify what they're doing on paper, then they're not going to get the money and they're not going to have a job. That's what it comes down to, and that's how I even try to think about it this way. I cannot think about it or try to pull on their heartstrings. They have no heart.
Right.
I can't say this is the right thing to do. I can't do that or not do that. And then they tell the aides that is working with Emily and your loved ones that you're a bad person, that you don't have anything, that you never wanted her, that you don't want anything to do with anything. That's what they tell the people surrounding Emily. And unfortunately, on top of this, the people surrounding Emily and your loved ones are very uneducated people who do not wash anything or clean anything, nor are they allowed to clean anything, especially your G2. They're not allowed to. So these people just basically disintegrate before your eyes because of just extreme bad care. I got into this mess because I wouldn't listen to her. There was can I say a name?
If you want to, yes.
There was a lady by the name of Pat Shaw. She works for Area and Aging. She was sitting in the back of the room when I was talking, and she opened an adult protective service complaint against me and said I was hitting my head and acting erratic. That was one of the reasons why they took Emily. That's what they quoted. Another reason they said is because apparently it was illegal for me to leave the state with Emily. So recently I had just come back to Michigan, and when they found out I was back in Michigan, that's when they came after me. And they said it was illegal for Emily to leave the state. Once you're under guardianship, you're a prisoner. You're worse than a prisoner. Apparently, she wasn't allowed to leave the state. And since I took her out of state, apparently I was absconding with her because you have to have court permission, even though I was the one that was taking care of her. So I would tell anybody, guardianship, do whatever you can to not do guardianship. Unfortunately, what happens is that they are coming after you. One way or another, they're coming out because they have to justify their job. Emily's a sweet little soul. I adopted her something like 1983 from Haiti. She was in a very bad way. I went there on a medical mission. I was not planning on adopting any baby, period. My son was 16, so I didn't want to do that, to be honest. She was put on my lap. She had nobody. She was in a very, very bad way. I do not agree with ever taking any child away from any family because of money. I would have gladly put the money up, and no one came back for her. So several months later, after I needed surgery, she was shipped to Salt Lake City, Utah, under a medical visa. And that's no easy feat. The hospital has to sponsor her. I have to sponsor her. But after a year, no one claimed her or showed up for her. So Haitian law says you have to wait a year. So after a year, I adopted her. And then with the help of Senator Orrin Hatch in Utah, he helped me get her citizenship. No easy feat. I knew there was going to be some problems with her being disabled, but she's such a sweetheart. Took her a year to smile, and then she started laughing and giggling, and then she got her personality, and then she started putting on weight, and then getting medical care, and all the things you do for your own kid. So I moved to Michigan in 2004 to get closer to siblings. They're all in Ohio. West Michigan was quite the, it was difficult, put it that way. But I had a good job here, and I bought a little house out in the country, which I really loved. Stayed here until I think 2018, I think is what it was. I went back to Utah because I had a brand new grandchild. I took Emily with me, of course. I stayed there for about a year and a half. I sent paperwork into Michigan because that's what they want you to do. They sent me a letter back saying I wasn't allowed to leave Michigan. It was illegal. I called
With your own daughter.
with my own daughter. I called the courts and I said, why would it be illegal to leave the state? And the court said, well, you have to get permission. I'm like, what law says that? So the discussion didn't go too much further than that. But I did end up moving back to Michigan to kick the renters out. Because my house was being rented out while I was in Utah, because I do travel work a lot, and that's not illegal. It's not illegal to cross state lines, last I looked. I came back, and then I called the courts here, and I was going to try to redo the guardianship here in Michigan. And then I found out about all the difficulties, which landed me in the listening tour. And that's when things kind of went downhill very fast because I was red flagged.
So let me ask you this, Holly. When is the last time you have seen your daughter?
It's been about a year and a half. I was threatened. I got letters from the lawyer. It is written out with their name on it, that if I touch Emily or do anything with Emily or do any kind of care, I will never ever see her again. So I was threatened time and time again. The guardian, her name was, I can't remember what her name is right now. Karen Van Sweden. She sent me a text and she said she was going to buy a burial plot for Emily with the stimulus money. These are the kind of notifications I get from them, threats of them harming Emily one way or another.
And Emily can't speak. What is Emily's diagnosis? Because she can't speak or testify or even tell you anything's wrong with her.
She's cerebral palsy. The times when I was visiting her and I would take people with me, it was horrible. They kept accidentally pulling out her G2, which is a feeding tube in the belly, because she was at a place that had absolutely no idea how to care for it. And they said they didn't know how to care for it. And Emily is black. They said they didn't know how to care for her hair, but yet they would not let me do it. They couldn't clean her G2. They couldn't position her because they said they didn't know how to. And then they said that the hospital told her, the guardian said that they were not allowed to. So Emily was supposed to just lay there. It was god awful. There was food and pus coming out of her G2 because it's simple to do. A 10-year-old could do it. You just clean it. Daily clean. No big deal. You just clean it. I mean, it's simple to take care of someone like that. You wash, you clean, you do everything you do for a human being. Mm-hmm. They didn't know how to, or they were not allowed to. They were just very intimidated by her for various reasons. I could only bring her so many clothes because they had no place to put it. The woman next to her, bless her soul, was just a little lady who was screaming at me all the time. There was no window in the room. I was not allowed to bring her toilet. She has a special made toilet by Medicaid that was paid for. She has shoes paid for by Medicaid and my own insurance, especially for cerebral palsy people. She has her own computer. She has a power chair that they will not allow her to use. She has her own wheelchair they're not allowed to use. She has all kinds of equipment that some I bought for my own money, some that's been bought from my personal insurance, and some that's been bought by Medicaid. But she's not allowed anything. She's not allowed any of her cute little shoes, her clothes.
So anything that she had become accustomed to make her feel comfortable, and also things that are medically necessary, in your opinion, have not been given to her. So she's also suffering. She's suffering.
These were prescribed by a physician. Basically, if you do not keep on top of things with a cerebral palsy person such as her limbs get more tight. Everything gets more tight. Her back is more tight. And then they were sending me messages, texting, thinking that I was the guardian about her various hospital trips. And then I found out she's having a surgery because her rods in her back was going through her shoulder. I mean, that sounds awful, but it's the truth. If you don't position people and take them to therapy and swimming and giving them a life, they disintegrate.
Yeah, she's
Like an
deteriorating.
elderly person, yeah, and even a normal person will disintegrate if not being properly taken care of. Getting their teeth brushed, getting enough fluids, all the things you do for yourself, you have to do for that person. So another person said that you're not allowed to visit because they want them to acclimate, meaning they want this person to just forget about their loved ones. Emily's going comatose again. She's kind of given up, like she did in the beginning. She is a sweet, sweet little soul, a smiley little thing that loves everybody. And unfortunately, I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know how it's going to work out. They're breaking so many laws, so many ADA laws, so many laws. Disability.
Well, let me ask you this, as we draw our session to a close. What does justice look like for you? If you could identify what justice looks like for you, what would it be?
Oh, I can't repeat what I would like justice to be honest, because that's my frame of mind. So I cannot repeat that. But getting Emily out, and getting Emily out, letting her have a good life again. I would leave the state, but I'm finding out every state is getting just as bad. They are scooping up people a lot. But I will tell you, the organization I'm with, Family Court Anti-Corruption Coalition, as far as I'm concerned, has been one of the better organizations for me. They've helped me a lot. They've helped me to vent. They have attorneys. They have people going through these things. They deal with court corruption, CPS, and APS. So Family Court Anti-Corruption Coalition, I know it's a mouthful.
And how can people get in touch with them? If it's someone out there listening, do they have a Facebook page or a website or something? If someone is having problems with guardianship, etc., how can they reach out to this organization?
They can go on Facebook or a website, Family Court Anti-Corruption Coalition. They are on Facebook, and it is a website. And I hold Zooms every Tuesday night for people that are actually all around the country, that we're getting ideas together, how to tackle this the best, because there's a big failure rate as far as going after these people. People are spending $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 going to court, especially probate court, trying to get their loved ones out. Same thing with CPS. Court corruption seems to be the basis for all of it, that and money. So there's a high failure rate. So we are organizing. Everybody is playing a part, no matter if you can hold up a sign or you do what Jody's doing, what you're doing. I'm doing Zoom meetings. We're making contacts. We have to push the courts back. If we don't, it's going to get worse. And it already is getting worse. But thank you for letting me do my spiel. And yeah, it's Family Court Anti-Corruption Coalition. They have been a savior for me. And everybody has their own thing that they can do. But for me, it's helped because they set me up with the Zoom thing, and I've made friends. I listen to everybody having the same story. And we are, all of us, everybody here, we're going to make a difference somehow or another. I don't know if Emily's going to survive it. I really don't know.
Well, we will be praying. Thank you so much. My heart goes out to you and your dear Emily. I will be praying.
And her real name is Emanuela. That's her birth name. I think it means in the hands of God.
Well, that's where she's at, Emanuela. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Holly. I truly appreciate your transparency and sharing your story. And just know, we will be sharing this story to the world. And I hope that if anyone's out here listening that is able to assist in this fight, join in. We need all hands on deck because this has to stop. Thank you so much, Holly. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
You know, we rely on the justice system to help us, not hurt us. And nothing hurts me more to know that a system that was put in place that is supposed to be helpful hurts. We've seen it a lot, whether it's from police brutality, elder abuse, and the things that we are talking about today, guardianship and conservatorship abuse. When are we going to hold our elected officials accountable? You know, it's interesting. You go into a courtroom or something. I've court watched a couple of times on some of these cases. And the way that the family members are spoken to, you would not think that it was the people's courthouse. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking, how in the hell are you going to disrespect me in my house? This is my house. My tax dollars pay for this house. My tax dollars pay your salary. My tax dollars pay for all of this. This is my house. And you get to disrespect me in my house, especially if I know the law. So then you want to shut me up so you can just do what you want to do. But guess what, folks? There's more. We have Jamie Nicholson. Jamie, are you there?
Yes, I am, Valerie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. You know, it just takes the wind out of me. So I know it has completely taken the life out of you because I know your story about your dear mom. And it was a shame what you went through and didn't even get a chance to see your mom until after she transitioned. Those are animals that did that to you and your family. Did not allow you to see your mom. And then when they call and tell you that you can see your mama, she's transitioned. So you're more or less identifying her so they can go through the rest of the process of moving her on for funeral services or whatever. It's sickening. It sounds like something that would happen in a third world country or something, not in the United States of America. The land of the free, the home of the brave. But the brave get silenced. The free get captivated. And if you say anything about it, it's a problem. Jamie, welcome.
Thank you, Valerie.
You have started a program, Save Our Seniors, and that was built on the auspice of you and your family not having the ability to see your mom. And I'm so tired of them using COVID as an excuse for everything, because this was a situation before we even had the pandemic. So take us on a little short tour of what that was like, because I don't want any triggers. I know it's hard. I appreciate you being here and talking about it, but talk about it as much as you can. The hell you went through here on Earth with these people.
Well, it is a great opportunity, Valerie, to be here and share a little bit of our story and be a strong voice for so many families who are still being denied their rights to care for their loved ones who are in residential care facilities. Everyone here knows someone who is suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's disease, that was my mom. For 16 years, Dad and I were her primary caregivers. We gave her the best quality life that we could give her. When she had to be put into a residential care facility because she couldn't walk on her own, she couldn't eat on her own, she couldn't communicate to people, we were with her 8 to 12 hours a day while she was in those facilities, making sure that she got the very best care, feeding her, making sure that all of her daily needs were met, her medications and changing and laundry, and we would watch TV with her and dance with her in her wheelchair.
Things that would make her comfortable under this situation.
Yeah. Well, we knew she was suffering, and we wanted to do everything that we could to help her through this phase in her life. So it was complete shock to us when we came in on March 11th, 2020, and they shut the doors on us and told us we were not allowed in. There was no help to explain to her what was happening. They shut us out. And we were locked out for 11 months. We couldn't hug her or care for her or dance with her or make sure that she was getting the care she needed for 11 months. We could see her through a window or on a screen. And I know that there are still people who are experiencing these atrocities right now. It's inhumane.
I get upset because I've gotten a chance to know you personally, and not that I don't have any empathy for any of the other victims, but you've shared this story before when we were in Westland and you were talking about your mom, and it was just unbelievable. This is something that you think you would see on Netflix, folks. A movie. You know, and the movie The Guardian, don't get me wrong, everyone thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. It was too much Hollywood in there for me, you know, but if you get to the root of the story, it is real. This does happen. Family members are taken away from their loved ones, not allowed to see them, don't know where they're moved to, are not allowed to talk with them. Family members who have the right to garner medical information and anything about their family member are denied the opportunity to even get updates. You know nothing about what's going on. And it sucks.
It does. I remember, Valerie, the day we saw a bruise on my mom's cheek, and first we had to wait for any staff member to even come to the window to answer our questions, anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. We were just waiting for anyone to appear because we were outside the window. It was 10 degrees below zero, and we were just trying to get someone's attention. And they couldn't tell us why she had the bruise on her cheek, but we'll get back with you, they said. 4 hours later, we got a call from the head nurse, and she said, "Oh, it's nothing, but we'll keep an eye on it." Can you imagine all of the loved ones out there who are experiencing these kinds of injuries or situations, and no one is there to understand or care for them or even pay attention?
You know, it sickens me because I pay a lot of money for those video visits that I have with my doctor. I happen to have a problem with my foot, arthritis and tendonitis in my foot, which is nowhere near what your mother was going through. But they didn't have a problem having those video visits with me and charging me that hefty copay to have those video visits. And you couldn't turn around and do the same damn thing for somebody's mama. So you couldn't even find out what was wrong with your mama. Are they crazy? That same technology could have been used to allow you to get questions answered about your mom, talk to your mom, ask her how she was doing. I can't even imagine for the life of me being there and not able to talk to my loved ones, transitioning with a bunch of strangers around me. It's not right. Through your agony, through your pain, and through the suffering of your family, you found the will to start a movement because you felt in your spirit, this is not just a moment for my family. I'm going to turn this moment into a movement. And that movement is Save Our Seniors. And you are on a journey to demand unlimited in-person nursing home visits for people who have been committed to these places. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about Save Our Seniors and what it is you're trying to accomplish?
Yes, Valerie, thank you. It'd be my honor to speak to this group of almost 600 people who are interested in that mission that you described. All loved ones are allowed unlimited visits and physical contact with their family members now. It's happening in some places, but it's not happening in all places. There are still loved ones who are prohibited from seeing their family members as much as they need to. And we have a Facebook group, we have a website. We are coming up to our third rally on Monday, August 23rd at the Michigan State Capitol, where we will demand that loved ones are allowed unlimited visits and physical contact with their family members. Now, we need people to contact their legislators. We need people to hold the facilities accountable, even care staff at facilities who are in agony because there are not enough workers to help. And they love their jobs and they love the residents, some of them, and they want to do a good job, but their hands are tied because they're not getting the monies that they were promised. They don't have the staff. And so everyone is suffering, not just the residents, but the care staff and the families. So our movement is prayerfully and strongly advocating for loved ones who are still, after 17 months, locked in nursing homes and prohibited from visits with family members to help care for them as they suffer the isolation that the CDC calls. They have published a report that says that loneliness and isolation are linked to serious health disorders. So as these facilities are afraid of being shut down because of the CDC, we can use those words from the CDC to say, listen, we're here. We can come in and help our loved ones. That's what our movement is all about, helping people to be reunited with their loved ones.
I applaud that. And as you were talking, I was thinking about when my husband was in the nursing home for rehabilitation purposes. But they told me, well, when the insurance runs out, you got to get him. You can take him home and he has to stay home with you for 30 to 60 days. And then you can bring him back and the insurance will start to pay again. What happened to that rule? maybe they thought we didn't have enough money to start that whole racket. You know what I'm saying? Because if that's the rule, that the insurance is only going to pay for so much time here. And they made sure, because they had me sign some paperwork to say, well, once Blue Cross stopped paying, then they were going to either start wanting to tap into his pension and all of these other things so I can take him home. Oh, hell yeah, he coming home. You're not messing with my paycheck at all. Now, I didn't know anything about any of this stuff at that time. But as you were talking, I was thinking back. A family member would love that. Okay, well, let's count the clock down. The insurance is going to stop paying in a couple of weeks. We can bring our family member home for 60 days. What happened to that rule? They're not abiding by any of those rules because they surely told me that. But instead, they see you have a little bit of money or ways to pay, or they get these attorneys involved. And then that's where it happens. So they were just dealing with me as the wife.
Yeah.
It sucks.
The way you describe it, that they were dealing with you as the wife, the stories that I read from the members in our group and some of the other support groups out there for families, that some of the facilities, as they are dealing with the family members, they're getting frustrated and they're taking it out on the loved ones too. Some of them, not all of them. And so that's frustrating for the family members whose hands are tied. They can't get in there and advocate for their loved ones the way they need to, the way they need to help them.
Baby, let me tell you, they tried it. They tried it, and I opened the can of whoop ass up there at Glacier Hills. Like, nah, you got the right one. This not going down. Not with my husband. You will be calling Ann Arbor PD or someone. I need these things done. And then they used to try to trick him and say, is your wife coming up here today? I said, don't tell them nothing. And don't open your mouth and put a pill in it. Tell them, wait on your wife. They started trying to give him pills. One time they had to reverse an overdose. They gave him some medicine that he should not have had. And he told me they were mistreating him. I had it on tape. He told me that they were mistreating him. And baby, I went through there like a tsunami. Oh, we're not doing that. You can call, ma'am, you need to calm down. Nope, you might as well call the police. I'm telling you right now, if my husband have one scratch, if he overdoses on another pain pill, if I see one bed, so I'm whooping somebody's ass in here tonight. So they were like, but they didn't bar my visits. And I was like, every time I call, I want to speak to the charge nurse or whoever's changing. I'm not playing with you. I'm surprised they didn't throw me in jail, but I had so much documentation. I was documenting everything, people's names. Let me see the charts. And they were like, well, you shouldn't be looking through the chart. Ma'am, my name is on all this paperwork. I can make copies. I can take pictures. Don't tell me what to do. This is my damn husband. I'm going to do what I want to do. A lady caught me in the hallway and she said, ma'am, I'm glad that you're doing that. Then they tried to tell me they didn't have a room. You know, they play all of these little games. So we didn't have room. So we had to put him in a room to share with somebody. No, he has top A1 insurance, ma'am. I walked every one of those floors. And I came back and I counted 7 rooms empty. What are you talking about? They play all kind of games to stress you out so you can lose focus on what's really going on. And if you're not strong and if you're not educated, if you're not an advocate or whatever, you will fold and be like, well, you know, that's what they said. Those are the rules. No, they are breaking rules, pretending as if they are not. And if you don't fight back, you get put in the situations that some of these people are in. Now, I'm surprised I didn't end up in a guardianship type situation because I was fighting hard. And now that I have met you in the blue shirts and, you know, Jody White and everyone, I can see where they probably would have been like, oh, she's too aggressive. She's probably beating him up at home, you know, or whatever, to make it seem like I am the person that's wrong so that they can take control of everything. They would have loved to have taken that pension and Social Security. And the little billing girl, she was so nice, but she told me that's what they were going to do. oh, well, well, if he stays here, we'll have to take all of his income. You're not taking all no income. You tell me how much it costs per day for him to stay here. And then I decide if I want to pay. You don't tell me you getting ready to take anything, but those are the games that they play.
Yep. You're right.
Man, let me calm down before I start cursing. And we on the, because I get the cursing and everything, but I'm serious about it. I'm glad that Jody asked me to join forces with you guys. This is not a game, people. People's lives are at stake. And it black, white, Italian, Arabic, it sees no color except green. It's a money grab. The judges are pimps. They are pimping. You remember the old pimps and prostitutes back in the 1970s when you would see Shaft and all of the pimps? They are pimping. And they're getting away with it. It's like a mafia. I don't know what you want to call it. I'm calling them pimps with robes on. Looking like the Godfather. All they need is the big hat because they sure got the robe and they are pimping. And it's a shame. People have worked their entire life and lost it all. It was pillaged. It's a shame. And I'm not talking a little money, millions of dollars. And when I heard that clip from Attorney General Nessel saying, oh, well, we're going to limit the number of people that, the conservators have under guardianship. So when you going to start that? That tour was what, like 2 years ago? When you going to start that? We need that started now. That is crazy. So again, I want you to share with our listeners how people can join your Save Our Senior movement, how they can get in touch with you or whoever is in charge, if they want to join, if they want to help volunteer, if they want to fight, if they want more information. Can you share that one more time for me, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Valerie. So one of the ways that people can find us is on Facebook. Our group is named Save Our Seniors Michigan with an exclamation point. And we have about 600 members. So as long as they look for that group on Facebook, they can find us there. We also have a Gmail account. So the email address to contact us is saveourseniors.mi for Michigan @gmail.com. And we have a website too through the Square funding program. And that website is saveourseniors.mi for Michigan again, .square.site, SITE. So those are the three ways that anyone can get in touch with us at Save Our Seniors Michigan.
All righty. Jamie, thank you. It was such a pleasure meeting you at the rally in Westland. Could you also say one more time the information about your rally at the Capitol, at our house, because that's our house. We having a house party. So tell them where they can come and join the movement, the date and the time.
Yes, thank you. So we will have a rally to Save Our Seniors Michigan on Monday, August 23rd from 5 o'clock p.m. until 6 o'clock p.m. on the steps of our house.
That's right.
Which is the Michigan State Capitol. We will be a strong voice for all families, for their loved ones in nursing homes, in residential care facilities. We are going to demand for unlimited visits, physical contact now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a chant for you. Whose house? Our house.
Our house.
That's right. Whose house? Our house. Fist up. Let me get that fist up. Our house. That's right. You let them know what's going on, girl.
That's right, sister.
That's right. You are my sister. I love you. Thank you so much for sharing and bearing your heart and soul about the story of your mother. I appreciate the Save Our Seniors movement, and this door is always open. Please keep us abreast of what's going on with you and your movement, and we'll be happy to support when we can.
Thank you, Valerie.
You enjoy the rest of your night. All right, folks, this is heavy. The weight of the world is on these families' shoulders. Sometimes they don't know where to turn, who to turn to, or who they can get to help them. But we're going to take a music break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to a gentleman that is available, that fights, that gets angry, that gets kicked off of the court watching Zoom calls because he knows what he's talking about. It's none other than a man who I've grown to love dearly through his advocacy, Mr. Rick Black. So let's take a quick musical break and we'll be right back. You are listening to the real black coffee, no sugar, no cream, straight talk with Valerie, and I always bring it unfiltered. There is an announcement that I would like for you to hear because there is going to be an additional advocacy group on Monday, the 23rd, prior to the Save Our Seniors movement. So what I want to do is hear from Holly. So we're going to bring Holly Deph back so she can give us that information. Holly, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can. So 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we are going to be in front of the courthouse in Lansing, Michigan, before the Save Our Seniors rally. Jody White's going to be videoing, writing things down. We're going to be doing skits. We're going to be telling our stories. This is for anti-corruption court. This is for anti-guardianship. This is for anti-CPS. This is for victims in probate. This is for just corrupted courts. We want to get all together, tell our stories together again, video it, put our stories down, march around the courthouse. At 3 o'clock, we are going to march over to the Capitol building and prepare ourselves for the Save Our Seniors rally with everybody else because we are one big group. This is kids, this is disabled, this is elderly, this is victims that have been thrown into jail, victims of all kinds of stuff, police brutality. We all want to go in the same direction. We do want justice. We need to push the courts back, and we need to make the judges accountable. So this is for all of us, one big group. But we are going to start at 10 o'clock in the morning in front of the courthouse in Lansing, Michigan, with our posters, with our music, with Jody videoing, with me writing things down. And please, come tell your stories. All is welcome. Everybody is welcome. Thank you very much.
No problem. And I'm going to ask the same of you. When you're walking around, whose house? Ours, our house. Fist in the air. Let them know. You're taking your power back. You know,
Yes.
the taxpayers pay for that. That's our house. So, and I'm just sick of even talking about this. You know, after so long, a whole year, I'm still talking about it. But we will continue to talk about it until justice is served. With that being said, this guy, I just don't know what to say about it. I love this guy. I met him a year ago. He debuted the Devil in the Courtroom series on this very show a year ago. And we had a wonderful conversation. I was educated. I got emotional. I got mad. And then I got a little fight in me. And that fight allowed us to do 5 additional series for a series we called Devil in the Courtroom. He doesn't need much of an introduction. This man fights all over the country and more recently had been fighting with the Britney Spears family. He has an organization called SEER, and he works tirelessly with families who are suffering around this nation. And I want to show a little clip because he doesn't play now. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. He looks, nice and calm and everything, but if you get him fired up, he doesn't play. Can we roll that clip of Rick Black Marquise? Here's a clip from when he was court watching before. I want to give you a little snippet of what we're in for.
Your Honor, under 744, all hearings shall remain open unless the alleged incapacitated person, adjudicated ward, or person alleged to have a developmental disability elects to have the hearing closed.
They just did.
Mr. Booker, excuse me, Mr. Hemness.
No, ma'am. You're not a party. You're not a party.
I am speaking.
Ms. Holt, I represent the board, and on the board's behalf, we are requesting it closed.
Thomas never asked for it to be closed. He wanted to be at the hearing.
Are you speaking with my client, Ms. Hogue?
Yes, we all are.
Yes, we all are. And we know what Thomas wants.
And we know what you people are up to and have been up to for years.
Your Honor,
We're watching.
We have the statute in front of us. Only the incapacitated ward.
This is illegal.
Mute them before you exclude them from the courtroom. It's in your Zoom panel.
Right, Mr. Hemnes, so
If you would mute them, Your Honor, I believe we just heard
justice requires
Just put Thomas Booker on. Put Thomas on.
I believe
Let's
we
get
just
Thomas and see what Thomas wants.
He should be in attendance.
Your Honor, if you would please.
Why, Mr. Hemnes, are you afraid of?
Not at all, Ms. Hogue.
Absolutely, Greg is. Jerry, let me get it straight.
Who's Jerry?
Gerald. It's the ward's right to be in attendance of the hearing and for him to have the voice.
Right to
I want to introduce to you a man near and dear to this movement, Mr. Rick Black. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Valerie. Thanks.
I am
great to see you again.
Oh, it's great to see you again. Can you believe it's been 1 year?
Sadly, I can. This has been an 8-year odyssey for my wife and I, and it amazes me when I reflect back on when we started, how little we've come, even though we've devoted a ton of energy and time into it. But every day the journey's getting easier. So I appreciate everything you're doing as well.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that Jody invited me into the movement. I draw from your energy and I draw from the stories that I have heard over this past year. It saddens me that it has been so little movement. You know, I looked at the clip again today before the show of the listening tour and all of the things that Dana Nessel was saying she was tired of and she was going to fix, and nothing has happened. It is an atrocity. I just cannot believe that they are getting away with this still to this day.
But let's take stock in what we have accomplished. You know, the movie I Care a Lot and the Golden Globe recognition of Rosamund Pike was invaluable to counter the narrative by the American Bar Association, the National Guardianship Association, and many other organizations at the county and state level. Then add on to that the compelling testimony of Britney Spears on June 23rd there in LA, talking about her fraudulent conservatorship, 13 years, almost $30 million in fees to predatory and parasitic attorneys who have taken advantage of her. And again, coming back to the court on July 14th and providing even greater testimony. So, you know, more and more people are starting to talk about this, and it's taking away leadership's ability to deny what we know happens routinely. And at some point, AG Nessel there in Michigan is going to be drawn out that she has to take action here, because just because men and women have a law license doesn't give them a license to exploit and steal.
And I think she's aware. She's pretending, because it's my understanding that they asked one attorney to resign. And we never really, resign, but I understand that they still have some cases that they are handling. However, I like your approach. Let's take stock in what has been accomplished. And with saying that, we have a special guest on the line. And, you know, I remember as a child watching Kerry Kasem and listening to the radio show. And I am so honored and privileged to have his daughter, Kerry Kasem, on the line. But unfortunately, she has to talk about what happened with her father. But we welcome her, and we're so happy to have you. Can you hear me, Miss Kasem?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you, Rick, for asking me. I really appreciate both of you, and really, I just adore Rick, and he's done so much for the movement. So thank you both.
You're welcome. Can you take us on a short journey? What happened with your father and where you are now?
Sure. I like thousands of families in America right now, there is someone, an uncooperative caretaker, whether it's a family member or a, guardian, lawyer, whoever it may be, taking care of the individual, who's not letting family in, who's completely isolated that person and said, sorry, you're not going to get any visitors. We're going to drug you up and I'm going to steal all your money. I mean, that's literally what goes on. That happened to me. That happened to my brother, my sister, all of my dad's friends, and all of my dad's family, including his brother. My father's wife decided that nobody was going to see my dad anymore. And it turned out to be his last year of life. We didn't know that. We knew he was sick. He had Lewy body dementia, but she hastened his death by her actions. But, I learned very quickly in 2013 when I called the police and then called Adult Protective Services, neither, could help or wanted to help. Or even had the tools or understanding of what was going on. Mm-hmm. So we went to court, and I quickly learned that in the United States of America, once you turn 18, you have no rights to see your parents. 0 if there's an uncooperative caretaker. So I continue to fight. It took me 8 months to prove egregious elder abuse and to counter all the lies that were told. Because, of course, the person that is doing this, the guardian, the conservator, the person with power of attorney, the caretaker will vilify the loved ones. They vilify people, that have been in their lives forever. It doesn't matter if it's family members or friends. Mm-hmm. They're the bad ones. And then you always know that's the bad apple. You go right there. The person that's vilifying loved ones, not just one person, but everyone, that's the person that needs to be taken out. That's the person you look at and you go, we got to focus on that person. And that was my stepmother. So everything she accused me of doing, I knew she was doing. So I was always one step ahead. And I did win conservatorship over my father, but she'd taken him to 3 different states trying to hide him. And that put his life in grave danger and eventually took his life. When I did win the conservatorship, it did not cross over state lines into Washington, where we finally found him. I got him to the hospital and had to fight all over again for him, but it was too late. The damage was done. She had caused so much, infection in his body by letting a stage 3 bed sore go. No painkillers, not enough. I mean, there was no 24-hour nursing. So my dad ended up passing away. But during that year, I thought, if I'm not going to win in court, I'm going to change the law. And that's where Kasem Cares was born, my foundation that Rick sits on the board. And he has SEER, his foundation. But yeah, I started this and I said, I'm not going to let people go through what I went through. I'm going to do my best not to let that happen.
Thank you. I honor you and definitely have a huge amount of respect from turning that pain into power and starting your organization to help other people. I just can't imagine going through that. These are not shoes that you can easily put on and walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I can't even imagine, what life was like for you during that time, but to turn around and be able again to turn that pain into power and to create your foundation and help other people who are suffering from the same thing. I commend you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It was cathartic for me, when you help other people. And a lot of people we couldn't help, but we could be there at least emotionally. At least, in the very beginning, I was the one returning all the calls and all the like, whether it was emails or social media messages. I would literally just call them back myself. Then it got to be overwhelming because there are so many people going through this. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. And it crosses all boundaries. It is not a race thing. It is not a class thing. I mean, you can go into every community and find it. And I was thinking when you were saying, well, we called the police and they didn't do anything. They don't see it as a crime.
Right.
They look at the traditional crime like a robbery or a carjacking or whatever. They don't see this as a crime. And it has come now time where we do recognize this is a crime and people need to be convicted. It's a crime.
Yeah, absolutely right. I've been doing conferences with the DA's Association. Rick spoke a couple times, but we did 3 conferences and we joined with it's the California District Attorneys Association, and they have DAs from all over the country. They have first responders. They've got police that work in elder abuse units, social workers. And we started to really educate and get them to understand what was going on. And I'll tell you, we played the movie Rick was in, and The Guardian, and people, I had done 5 conferences, and it was the first time people went, oh my gosh, I get it. And thank God for that film, and thank God for movies like I Care a Lot, but The Guardian really, really opened people's eyes to what was going on.
Amen.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I hate to be all starstruck, but I am when I talk to you, and I loved your father's show, and
thank you.
Everyone knew and loved your father. I mean, it was just such a big part of my life, that show, and the top 100, and it's just so sad to hear what he had to go through after being such a hero in so many of our lives, and someone that we looked up to the degree of needing a hero in the end. And I'm so glad that he had that in you.
Well, yeah, thank you. Nobody deserves, though, to go through that. Nobody. I don't care if it's your worst enemy. Doing that to somebody is awful. And he gave so much. He was such a humanitarian. He really, really loved people, cared for people. He loved his wife, who treated him horribly. But it was just heartbreaking, because he didn't deserve that abuse.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your foundation? What type of things do you do? And if someone wanted to reach out to you to get help, how would they do that?
Sure. And can you still hear me? I'm sorry. It moved to my car microphone from my phone. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So you can just go to kasemcares.org, and you can find me there. You can email me at Kerry@kasemcares.org. And, we have a telephone number. There's a hotline. So if anybody needs emotional support, we are there. And you can get involved. And that's, Michigan was my dad's hometown. So I want to get bills passed there. I want this handled there. This is, out of all the states, this is the one I want to focus on for the next year or two to really handle it, because we've been there for 3 years and nothing has been accomplished. Nothing. It's still happening.
Mm-hmm. And it's sick. They went around, I'm a swearer. I'm not going to swear with you on the line, though. But they went around with this listening tour that was just a crock. Saying the listening tour, the talking points on the listening tour made it clear to me that they understand what the problem is. But to do nothing about it after that is an atrocity. I just cannot, so like Rick said, we'll take stock in what has happened, but so much more needs to happen. I am glad that you're putting your focus on Michigan. And if it's anything that I can do to assist, I will be willing to.
Thank you. I mean, everybody, right? Everybody that's involved right now with your show. It seems like everybody has that same goal to fix this issue. Mm-hmm. And it's so important, because we're all going to get old, God willing, hopefully, and this could happen to us.
Yes. Yes, it can. And I'm learning with each and every story, things that I need to do with my mom just to guard myself against this type of crime.
Yes.
But it's always great to have someone like Rick Black in your corner. I've seen him in action. I watched him court watch here with Judge O'Brien. And man, I'm telling you, if you have this guy on your team, you're on a winning team.
I'm blushing, Valerie.
But it's true.
It's true.
That's why So I called him up last year. I'm like, hey, Rick,
we're starting to lose you a little bit. We're starting to lose you a little bit, Kerry.
I really want you on my board. He said, of course. Oh no. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit though, so you must be moving.
So sorry.
That's okay, but
I've been driving from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. I apologize.
No problem. Is it something that you would want to share with our listeners before we move on to Mr. Black?
Sorry, say that again. Can you ask me that question again?
Is this something else that you would like to share with our listeners before we move on to have a conversation with Mr. Black?
Oh, just if anybody's going through this and you need help, especially emotionally, please go to kasemcares.org. We're there for you. I know Rick takes tons of phone calls every day as well. He has helped out so many people. So, we both are here, and hopefully in the next year or two, we're going to get some real changes. I really believe we will.
I agree. I think if we all join forces and unite, all hands on deck and unite, put any differences aside, let's come together and get it done.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And Rick, thank you. And hopefully, I'll meet you when I'm in Detroit next.
Absolutely.
Count on it. Thanks, Kerry.
I would love that.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, guys.
Okay.
Have a good one.
You drive carefully.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
So now for the man of the hour. It's like going to a concert and you save that last act, that grand finale. I love this guy. I can't say it enough. He fights from his heart. His loyalty is not just in this camera, in your face. He's loyal behind your back. He's working behind the scenes. He's done so many things for this cause. None other than Mr. Rick Black. Rick, what keeps you going? What is your story? How did you get involved?
Well, it's amazing when you've had great parents, when you've had great mentors, and working hard and honesty and respecting your fellow man is a part of your life from birth until, in our case, 53. And then you watch a loved one be taken hostage and you're forced to turn to the authorities. First, we turned to the police. I thought your comments earlier were so appropriate. They refused to recognize what was happening to my wife's dad as a crime, and they directed us to file for guardianship and to go to court. And much contrary to what Kerry's experience was, and the partnership that Kerry and I have built between SEER and Kasem Cares has been invaluable because she saw how conservatorship in California can actually help you to intercede and get a troublemaker neutralized. But too often across the country, what we see is conservatorship and guardianship is used to only maximize the destruction of a family and to further the exploitation. And that was certainly the case with our family. We were forced to turn to the court. Then we saw this machine completely take over and isolate my wife's dad. And then he died 2 years later in the home of his exploiter. Fortunately, because we were not going to abandon him, we did ultimately get law enforcement's attention and got a criminal conviction of the guardian for exploitation and theft of $220,000 from my wife's dad. But he was dead long before we got the criminal conviction, and none of the money was ever returned. So there's nothing like an experience like that to motivate you to take action, because the system did nothing to help our family. And, again, thousands of now nearly 4,000 cases that we've researched or counseled since 2013 when it got exposed to this. And what we now know is every state has the issue. The only question is to what degree. And it's generally the marginalized population that is targeted: immigrants, blacks, Hispanics. But the reality is, if it can happen to Kerry Kasem's family, to Mickey Rooney's family, to Britney Spears, and the list goes on celebrities, including Aretha Franklin's family. They're in Detroit or in the Michigan area, and can happen to our family, which was the picture of preparedness, of love, of respect. The reality is it can happen to anyone, and does. And that has what has motivated my wife and I to drop everything. This is what we do 7 days a week. The phone rings at all times of day or night from new victims across the country. I spent most of the day today on a hearing on a case in Florida where a wife has been removed from her husband for the last 7 months on false accusations. Her estate documents were denied. It has cost the family over $300,000, closer to $400,000 in fees in just 9 months. And today's hearing was to determine whether a state agency in Georgia would be the permanent guardian of this man who is dying of terrible stage 3 bed sores. I mean, he has been ignored, neglected, abused in the system for the 7 months while they were claiming these false claims against the wife. And I think, based on the testimony today, where we discredited everyone who claimed to have firsthand knowledge but didn't, and hopefully we're going to get this guardianship dismissed and this man reunited with his wife before he dies. But the likelihood that this family ever gets back the nearly $400,000 that they lost is almost zero. The likelihood that our family will get back the $1.2 million that we lost desperately trying to protect my wife's dad over a 2-year period is zero. This occurs because lawyers are allowed to lie in the courtroom. Any person who's ever been convicted falsely of a criminal act knows what happens in a courtroom. In an equity courtroom, which is very, very different from the criminal prosecution courtroom, there's very little oversight. There's almost no burden of proof required. If 3 people got up and make a lie, guess what? The lie carries the day and money starts flowing away from the estate and into the hands of the predators. Every American, all 320 million of us, needs to understand this system is broken and it's got to be fixed. And if people like you, Valerie, and Kerry, and Jody, and Holly, and all the others that you've had on your show, as well as everyone that supports SEER and who we support with our advocacy, don't start yelling, demanding reforms, God forbid what this thing's going to look like in another 20 years.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that at some juncture we can all unite and be that strong voice. I know there are a lot of entities doing work, some large, some small or whatever, but if we could all unite and become unified, because we all want the same thing, justice.
No, and Valerie, just to build on that, because my wife and I had the opportunity to go to Atlanta over the weekend. Atlanta's a home for us. That's where we were married. That's where our son was born. That's where we've spent 2 stops in a 14-stop career before we parked here in Charlotte. But we went to Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Martin Luther King preached for years, and his dad. And we walked the Walk of Fame, which had approximately 50 names on it, white and black, diversity of faiths, who spoke up in support of the nonviolent movement and what MLK led. To stand before his museum, the grave of him and Coretta, read his passages of how he spoke about unity, about having our voices heard to all races, color, religion, and creed, you're exactly right. that is what we have to strive for, because this sees no color other than green. This sees no faith. But this is about promoting goodness over evil, because what occurs too often in these courtrooms is truly evil. And we've got to speak up and demand the reforms that are needed.
And I've seen the purest form of evil when I court watched with you one time and Jody. And the injustice was almost just so blatantly ignorant that the judge made it laughable, like, what you gonna do? I'll shut this whole thing down. I'll turn all these cameras off. I mean, just blatant disrespect of the process and of our house. We pay for that courthouse with our tax dollars. We pay your salary with our tax dollars. And to talk to individuals like a lot of judges do, they have the Judge Judy mentality, but they're not in Hollywood. Just say whatever, however, whenever, and you were trying to be as respectful as possible. He said, who is that guy? And just, oh, well, hang up on him. Just like, okay, so you just get to hang up because he's telling you the truth, because he knows the law. It is ridiculous. And poor Jody, anytime she shows up, he'll be like, oh, I see Jody White on here. Well, I'm telling you right now, one outburst and I'll get you all out of here. And it's like, nobody's saying anything, though. We just logged in on a Zoom call and you going off. But that goes to show to me that you're on to something.
Oh, yes.
Because this is an open courtroom. We should be able to sit here and watch these monitors all day long. Why are you intimidated? Why are you acting a fool? Why are you being disrespectful? Why are you uneasy, sir? It's a problem, and no one's investigating him.
No, and here's the reality, Valerie. The reason they're getting angry, the reason they're retaliating against me, against Jody White, against others, is they understand we're right. Mm-hmm. They understand that we've both been harmed terribly, personally as well as our families, and we're not backing off. We're going to continue to bring the heat. And these people only know retaliation, but our army's growing. Our army's growing every day. And movies like I Care a Lot, documentaries like Guardians Inc. and The Guardians, and other stuff that's coming to the forefront, and the activism. You know, being in LA on June 23rd and watching 300 media and activists out on the streets in front of the LA County Courthouse talking about Britney Spears, and then having her come on and speak for 25 minutes about how all these attorneys had exploited her over the previous 13 years. That's our voice. Mm-hmm. And we're elevating that from the rafters, and it's starting to move. But their retaliation now is because they truly fear we're gaining traction. The efforts by the National Guardianship Association, the American Bar Association, each county and state bar association, it's been amazing to watch them in their propaganda campaign attempt to create the counter narrative that don't listen, don't watch those movies, don't listen to these people. And particularly on Britney Spears, they keep wanting to blame it on James Spears, her dad. Look, James Spears controlled nothing. 13 attorneys made over $20 million in fees over the last 13 years on that conservatorship. And all they did was use James Spears as a lackey, plain and simple. Do you have any power when you walk into a courtroom versus the attorney representing you? Let me help you. No. Do I? No. Did James Spears? No. But they knew how to use James Spears as a lackey. And Daniel O'Brien in Oakland County Courthouse knows how to use his cronies as lackeys.
You're absolutely
what justice
right.
is all about, Valerie.
You know,
justice is about right and wrong, good versus evil, protecting the public, not making sure a bunch of attorneys get to line their pockets with our bucks.
Well, I'm glad to see some movement, and I hope that the momentum behind the Britney Spears case just keeps going. And as you say, building, and more people join forces and go on this national justice tour, because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Absolutely. And I just feel that it is an atrocity that these stories fall on deaf ears, the ears of those who should be listening. And they just turned a blind eye and do nothing. They should be convicted. You know, when I think about the duty to report in the work I do, I have a duty to report if I see something is wrong. Social workers have a duty to report. Nurses have a duty to report. And nobody's saying anything about what's going on in these nursing homes.
That's right.
You have a duty to report.
And you know what's interesting, Valerie? Attorneys are never mandatory reporters. They have a front row seat to all these atrocities, particularly when the convictions occur in the equity court system and they don't have a mandatory reporting requirement. That should tell every American this system, which really generated after World War II. This is where divorce, child custody, adult guardianship, probate matters are heard. Almost no cases are ever heard by a jury in the country. It's heard by a single judge who used normally, including Daniel O'Brien and other judges across Michigan, they're placed on the bench because of the bar's support, the Bar Association's support. So they feel an obligation to the bar far greater than they do the public. Yeah, and that's what the public has to understand, that this system was perfectly designed by them to serve them at their expense. And because while we were raising our families and building our estates and making the world a better place, sending our sons and daughters overseas to fight for the freedoms for this country and others, these people were building a fortress around those courts so that they could be assured of making illicit funds. We have to approach this as a war, not physically, but to use the principles of Martin Luther King to elevate this thing and get the attention of leadership that will ultimately bring about the change. We're seeing progress. We've got a couple of bills introduced in Michigan to try to bring about some changes. We've done as well in California. The FREE Act, which was introduced just last month by Representative Charlie Crist out of Florida and Representative Nancy Mace out of South Carolina, we're putting markups in it to make it even stronger. We're looking for a Senate supporter on that bill. But that bill will give families of fraudulent guardianships and conservatorships the first exit ramp to go into the federal courts that has ever existed in our country. It also provides more strength in the markups to protect the rights of families. Today, we don't have a single federal law that challenges what these county courts do to families in guardianship and conservatorship matters. This bill, if passed, will do that. So, and the fact that 2 recognized representatives have sponsored it, and hopefully we'll get a lot more to do that and get this on the president's desk before the end of 2022. That's certainly our hope. We're going to finally get a little bit of relief on this.
That's good news. That's good to hear, because the federal government should take a look at that and so much more. But if we can start there, let's start there.
And one more addition to Valerie, because it's been a year since we last talked. This spring, March, we saw the FBI arrest the first guardian and attorney nationwide who exploited through a guardianship and was fully endorsed by the probate judge. This is a case in Florida, Columbia County, Florida. It actually involved a guy who just got elected in 2018 as the district attorney. But 10 years ago, as an attorney and guardian, he exploited a man of his entire $1 million estate in a guardianship. He then engaged in public corruption after he became a DA, and the FBI stepped in and investigated. The charges that he's now up on, he fled to Arizona, but they found him and brought him back, and he's now in jail. But as he goes through the prosecution process, the charges that he's up on are for what he did in a fraudulent guardianship 10 years ago that was fully approved by a local probate judge. That arrest didn't happen a year ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. This is a first, one of hopefully many, and one that we recognize if federal authorities don't investigate these crimes, the likelihood that these people ever get caught is almost zero. And the position by AG Nessel with regard to all that's been reported, including the 400 plus wards that Mary Rowan has in Wayne County, it's outrageous that they can't go through those files and find the same criminal activity that got this attorney arrested in Florida.
Of course they can. Of course they can. You know, I just almost vomited when I heard her say, oh yeah, and the number of, you know, clients per attorney that are in guardianship, we're going to do something about that. When?
Right. Yeah, right on. When?
Like, when? You have the power to do something about that right now.
That's right.
So when?
That's
and
right.
Where does the pressure have to come from? Or I just don't understand. I don't understand, but I know it is a crime. I know that people should be prosecuted. And I know when that starts to happen, it'll start cleaning things up, because it'll break that good old boy network up, and people will start being afraid of the consequences associated with this crime.
Right on. It's going to take teamwork, and you've highlighted that so eloquently, because you can't fight these battles alone. We've got to lean on each other and keep pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. So if you had the ideal movement, because you've done great things with SEER and then joining in with Kasem Cares, but if you could put together the right group and say, we're going to get justice, what would that look like? Because this is a call to action moment that I'm asking you for. What does that look like? What do you want people to do? Where do we start? How do we unite? From the grassroots level all the way up. What does that look like in your eyes?
Well, it starts with more victims finding strength in the movement and coming forward. Most victims are never identified because they're old and they don't have family, because a lot of targeting goes on in this. But it starts with having the courage to speak out, not only the victims, but their loved ones, both relatives and non-relatives. Once we start doing that, then it's a two-pronged approach. One, going after law enforcement to educate them that this is a crime, and it is, and get those investigations launched that will ultimately bring about criminal prosecutions of both guardians and attorneys. We've gotten a few, but not near enough. On the reform side, it's going to Lansing, it's going to Washington, D.C., it's talking to leadership about what routinely happens, because what they have heard from the Guardianship Association, from the beneficiaries of guardianships, from the ABA, from the State Bar Association, that this is all about dysfunctional families, and you need to ignore them because they were trying to exploit a mom, a brother, a dad, a wife. And while that happens, that doesn't happen with regularity. And what we're after here is a blind justice, a justice that looks at theft as theft, no matter who did it, a justice that looks at exploitation, no matter who did it. So we've got to get that coming up from the grassroots. But then from the top down, it's getting federal oversight, but it's also getting our sister organization, the Alzheimer's Association, ARC, which is very much about disabled children, getting them educated, AARP, National Disability Rights. Those four major organizations that receive significant block grant funding as non-government offices and they're all nonprofits collecting a ton of money from the public. They should be demanding that this system work with transparency and accountability. And if we get our citizen activist group coming up from the bottom, and there's a dozen nationwide like Kasem Cares and SEER and others, we get them going with those big four national organizations, we will force the political discussion in our country to demand the accountability that's needed. We've proffered solutions, Valerie. This thing isn't that tough to fix.
No, it's not.
You just have to want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem we've had is the attorneys know they make much more money defending a dysfunctional system and swearing that it works perfect than they ever will working with a system that's transparent and accountable. So that's my ideal world. We work those platforms every day, both strategic and tactical. To the point that was made earlier, we spend a lot of time, both my wife and I, every day with phone calls coming in of families who can't believe what they're facing and just want somebody to talk to who can tell them what you feel is real.
Yes.
This is what you got to do to fight it, because the people that you're hiring all too often, the parasitic attorneys, they're not going to be honest with you. They won't tell you what SEER will tell you. And I'm not an attorney. I'm just a good old farm boy that happened to get a decent career and could afford to retire at age 53. But working for free for the last 8 years was not my intention when I woke up one day to find out we had lost a loved one and he needed her help.
Well, I thank God for you and the work that you and your wife are doing. I hope that we can get the attention of those foundations that you mentioned. I'm heartbroken. So I can only imagine the victims of this system. I have not been victimized by the system, and my emotions are very heavy. I'm hoping that I see justice in my lifetime. I hope that I see some redemption for these families in my lifetime. And I think we're on the right track. We're on the right track. Well, as always, we run out of time, but it was so good to have you on the show again. We started in this very place a year ago, and I didn't really realize it until Jody said something like, it's been a year. Like, wow, no, I didn't. But I'm so happy to see you. My phone lines are open. The studio is always open. Whenever you want to come on, you are welcome. And any of the other guests, I want to do what I can with this platform to help bring awareness and justice.
Valerie, you're a treasure. Thanks.
Well, thank you. You are appreciated. You enjoy the rest of your night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You have been listening to another episode of Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream. And we call these episodes The Devil in the Courtroom, but also the devil is in the details. Because it's not what is being done, it's who's doing it. And if the shoe was on another foot other than an attorney or a judge, people would be up under the jail, as my grandmother used to say. On this show, we do not try to spill any tea or make you feel dazed like you had a shot of cheap liquor. We want you to see things from another perspective, mine. And tonight, the perspective of the victims of the pillaging of assets and our corruption that's in our court system. I want to thank again each and every one of them, Ms. Holly Deph, Jamie Nicholson, Miss Casey Kasem, and Mr. Rick Black. There are many more stories to be told, and I hope to get the opportunity to tell additional stories, but this time that justice has been served. That is all for us tonight, folks. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and we're out of here.